40 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And our final newcomer to the Sun Belt Conference is the Marshall Thundering Herd. And this is going to be an exciting year for the Marshall program. After being one of the top teams in Conference USA for most years, last year a bit of an exception, but most years Marshall, pretty good football team overall. This is a pretty solid program, and they have a lot of talent coming back this year. But joining the Sun Belt Conference, joining a conference that, in my opinion, is tougher than Conference USA, Marshall may have their struggles in 2022. But can this team make a bowl game and maybe even push for a spot in the Sun Belt Conference championship game? Or is this a Marshall team that's going to need some time to adjust to their new college football landscape? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and hey, I do videos during the season as well. I know we're getting down to the wire in these predictions. You want to make sure you hear my thoughts on what goes on during the season. And for the Marshall Thundering Herd fans out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than me. So if you feel like I missed something and you want to add something, leave it in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. Let's talk about the Herd in 2022, my fifth-ranked team in the Sun Belt Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. So they are the highest-ranked newcomer in terms of this conference. Part of that is what they've done in past years. However, last year, bit of an exception. They were 7-6 overall, 7-5 in the regular season, lost that bowl game to, I believe, Louisiana, and then we're 5-3 in Conference USA conference play. And when you take a look at the stats last year out of Conference USA, I mean, this was still a good football team. Just some of the bounces of the football went the wrong way. 456 yards per game with around 33 points per game offensively. Defensively, they were middle of the road in yards per game, around 387 yards per game allowed. But they only allowed around 23 points per game, which I believe was tied for the best mark in Conference USA. Yeah, they were tied for first in fewest points per game allowed in the conference last year. Gave up more yards than you would have liked, but they kept teams out of the end zone. And this Marshall team does have quite a bit coming back, but they're also losing a lot as well. Most notably is Grant Wells, the quarterback from last season, transferred over to Virginia Tech. He had 3,532 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions a season ago while rocking a 66% completion percentage. Now, the numbers are not fantastic. He had a lot of passing yards. That's a fantastic number. But the touchdown to interception ratio, not really all that fantastic. So the next guy that steps up for this program, going to look to improve on that touchdown interception ratio. When you look at the running back room, hey, your second and third leading rushers from a season ago were gone. Sheldon Evans and Knowledge McDaniel. Believe both of those guys are heading away from this program. And Grant Wells had 7 rushing touchdowns a season ago for himself. Sheldon Evans, 303 yards, 5 touchdowns a season ago. You lose that production. Knowledge McDaniel had had barely over 100 yards, but it's still production loss nonetheless. In terms of pass catching wise, you lose your second leading receiver from a season ago, Willie Johnson, and was the team leader in yards per catch with 19 and a half, almost 20 yards per catch. 625 yards on 32 catches and 3 touchdowns for Willie Johnson. Xavier Gaines, the tight end, you also lose him as well. 42 receptions for 483 yards, 3 touchdowns for him there as well. So there is some talent definitely leaving the offensive side of the ball for Marshall. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, still some talent leaving, but most of it is depth pieces, at least in the defensive front 7. TJ Johnson gone off the defensive line. He had 5 sacks a season ago, though I do believe that was second on the team a season ago. Jamari Edwards, another guy that is leaving, 2 sacks a season ago, 36 tackles, which was the same mark as TJ Johnson. Linebacker Brian Cavasante, however you pronounce that last name, could be a couple different ways. I apologize for mispronunciations again. 32 tackles, 1.5 sacks. There are some other names you could throw in the defensive front 7. Now in the back 4, they're losing a lot. JoJo Evans and Brandon Drayton, a couple names there, but some pretty key talents leaving this team as well. Corey McCoy and Nazee Johnson. Both of them had 2 interceptions last year. Didn't lead the team. We'll talk about that player in a little bit, but you still lose some talent out of the defensive backfield. The new quarterback this year for Marshall looks like it's going to end up being Henry Colomby, a Texas Tech transfer You do have Cam Fancher coming back for this team, but I would expect that Henry Colomby ends up getting the start. Had an okay, solid year at Texas Tech a season ago, in my opinion, come into this Marshall team, having to fill in the shoes of Grant Wells. In the running back game, you return one of the better running backs in the nation, in my opinion, Rasheen Ali. 250 carries, 1,401 yards, quick math, that's 5.6 yards per carry, with 23 rushing touchdowns a season ago, and was also the team's 5th leading receiver a year ago with 342 receiving yards. Rasheen Ali is a great dual threat weapon, and Marshall, very, very nice to have him back. But you also have another rushing threat in the backfield this year, and Kalen LeBourne. And he is a transfer over from, I believe, Florida State. So that's a big pickup for this Marshall Thundering Herd team. When you look at the wide receiver position, a lot comes back there. Corey Gamage, the lead receiver, comes back at 878 yards, 2 touchdowns. Shadid Ahmed comes back. Talik Keaton also comes back. And you figure those guys are probably going to end up being the 3 top wide receivers for this team next season. A lot of depth pieces coming back there as well, including a transfer that's coming into this program. Defensively, lots of talent coming back, especially on the defensive line. Owen Porter, Kobe Cumberlander were 2 phenomenal talents for this team a season ago. Owen Porter, 4 sacks. Cumberlander, 4.5 sacks. When you look elsewhere, Elijah Alston also comes back. And they're getting a couple transfers in there as well. Isaiah Gibson, a transfer over from Kentucky, and Anthony Watts, a transfer over from Purdue. Should be guys there that really step up. And then Quentin Williams as well. He's not on the list, but is a transfer from Miami that they get over here as well. In the linebacker position, Abraham Beauplan was the leading tackler a season ago, had 110 of them, 2.5 sacks as well. Eli Neal led the team in sacks with 5.5. Also 97 tackles, not a bad year. Charlie Gray coming back as well on the linebacking group. And then the defensive back, Micah Abraham, EJ Jackson coming back, Isaiah Norman, and Andre Sam, couple transfers from FCS programs coming in. But then Stephen Gilmore is going to be the leader of this defensive back group. Had 8 passes defended, 3 interceptions a season ago. So there's still a lot of talent on this Marshall team, a lot of talent that I personally like. But when you take a look at the schedule, it's a Marshall team that could have their struggles in the Sun Belt Conference this year. They're getting quite the schedule to open up Sun Belt play, but there are a couple good things about it. When you look at non-conference play, you have a home game against Norfolk State that they should be able to win, a home game against Gardner-Webb that they should be able to win, a road game against Bowling Green that, again, I'll say they probably should be able to win, although Bowling Green did beat Minnesota last year, is the top team in returning production, and you have to go play on the road during homecoming week for the Falcons. Could prove to be tricky, but I don't see it. And then on the road against Notre Dame there as well, probably going to end up being the toughest game Marshall has on this schedule. When you look at Sun Belt play, you got road games against Troy, James Madison, Old Dominion, and Georgia Southern. Home games against Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, App State, and Georgia State. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on into... Oh, I just hit my mic. I apologize. Let's dive on into this Marshall schedule a little bit more. The Notre Dame game definitely is going to be the toughest game that they play all season long, right? That's a Notre Dame team that is bringing in Marcus Freeman as that head coach to be the new head guy. And when you take a look elsewhere on this Notre Dame team, this is a very, very good defensive team. Offensively, there are some question marks that Notre Dame has to figure out. Who starts at quarterback? Is Kyron Williams going to be able to be replaced? They have one of the better tight ends in the nation in Michael Mayer, but who else steps up at the wide receiver position? There's a lot to answer for this Notre Dame program. But when you take a look at this Notre Dame team overall, it's a Notre Dame team that, especially with Marshall going on the road, you'd figure would be the favorite against the Thundering Herd. Now, when you get into Sun Belt play, oh man, is this home schedule brutal. Notice Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, App State, Georgia State. As of uploading this video, do not have videos on my channel. And you know I do this power ranking style. Yeah, that means that those are the 4 teams in the Sun Belt that are the only 4 teams higher than Marshall. Good news is Marshall gets them all at home, so I think there is a chance that they win 1, 2, possibly even 3 of them. But that is a brutal home schedule to open up Sun Belt Conference play. And then you got to go on the road to play Troy, a team that, like I said earlier today, again, as of uploading this video, I really, really like. On the road against James Madison. That's another newcomer, not only to the conference, but to the FBS platform. And then 2 teams that could prove to be pretty solid this year. On the road against Old Dominion. Hey, they made a bowl game last year, coming from the same conference as Marshall. And then on the road against Georgia Southern. here as well. So this is definitely going to be an interesting year to watch for the Herd. There are a couple changes going on with this team, and the schedule is pretty tough. But this is a Marshall team that I feel like can do some good things. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict the team's record. If the game's in red, I don't see you winning the game. If the game is in orange, I still don't see you winning the game. But hey, it is college football, and upsets can happen. Yellow, your 50-50 high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for the team on the other side of the ball, and games in green pretty much have you winning. So Gardner Webb, Norfolk State, those are two games highlighted in green that I see Marshall being able to win. They should be able to go 2-0 in those games. Now, the games highlighted in yellow-green probably should be able to win all of them, but notice all of them are on the road. These are going to be tough games for Marshall to win. On the road against Bowling Green, this is the top team in returning production, so they have a lot of experience from a season ago coming back, and they did beat Minnesota last year for whatever that is worth to you. Now, it's a Bowling Green team that I don't think people are going to expect a lot from, but it's a Bowling Green team that could very well equal or maybe improve their record from a season ago. So I would watch out for that Bowling Green team. I do think Marshall's going to end up being the favorite. I do think they should be able to get the win. But that Bowling Green team, I think it's going to sneak up on people this year. You got road games against Old Dominion and Georgia Southern there in conference play as well that are highlighted in yellow-green. And again, Old Dominion, as I've said, is a team coming into the conference that I feel like is going to have its struggles, especially if they start 1-6 again. And Georgia Southern, a program that bringing in Clay Helton is going to start that rebuilding phase to try to get up to bowl status, maybe even start contending a little bit more heavily in the Sun Belt Conference. So I would still watch out for those two games on the road. Both those teams are going to want to look for something to prove if they don't have anything to play for towards the end of the season. When you take a look elsewhere, of course, that Notre Dame game is in orange, as I've talked about before. I do think that's the toughest game Marshall has on this schedule. Going to be a hard game for them to win on the road in South Bend. I don't necessarily see them winning that game, although I don't think it is an impossibility. However, Notre Dame, I do feel like, is the much better football team. When you look at the rest of the schedule, as I said before, the home schedule is brutal, and all of the games are in yellow because they are all not necessarily swing games. I know the term swing games gets thrown around a lot, but there's a lot of games here that are in yellow that could go either way for me. And Marshall gets their toughest opponents in Sun Belt Conference, at least as of this point, at home. And no, the at home is going to change. I'm talking about the strength of the team. But, I mean, Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, App State, Georgia State, those are four teams right there that can push for a spot in the Sun Belt title game. I think Marshall's going to be able to win one, maybe two of them. I think three is pushing it just a little bit. But then there are also tricky games on the road. On the road at Troy, on the road at JMU. JMU was one of the better teams in the FCS for many, many years. I think won a national title in recent history there as well. At least they've made the semifinals. They've made the finals as well. It's a James Madison team that comes in with a lot of championship experience. And Troy, a team that I like to be a Sun Belt sleeper. Now, when I look at this Marshall team overall, I like the talent. Columby had a solid year. I think he can improve on what he did a season ago. This team is loaded defensively. They have a lot of good playmakers on offense. But I think they're going to struggle in the Sun Belt Conference a little bit this year. Now, 7-5, a fairly respectable record. I know Marshall fans probably are expecting more of like an 8-4 type season. I think the ceiling for this team is 9-3. I think they can win a lot of games. But I think Marshall is going to have their struggles in the Sun Belt Conference in 2022. So there you have it. My predictions for the Thundering Herd. Be sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. Anything like that does help support the channel. And hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I will see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.